Hello, listeners. This is Arjun, and you're listening to Obo Vinyls, free-willing restoration of the art of telling. Today, as we step into the seventh episode, I would like to introduce you to a very special guest. But before I do that, let me pick a question. Well, what about a storyteller who tells a story through various expressions, whose medium of expressions are multifarious? Such a storyteller who tells a story through images, through the pen and paper, moving images. Well, let me introduce to you Nilarun Basu, eminent author, photographer, filmmaker, and film producer. Let's welcome Nilarun Basu on board. Okay, hello Nilarun, welcome to Obo Vinyls.
Hello, Arjun. Thank you.
Okay, so my first question is when I'm actually speaking to someone who has been practicing multidisciplinary forms like being an author, expressing with a pen, with a camera as a photographer, and also being a film producer. So, my question is how do you actually prioritize your expression?
That's a very insightful question. I think for me, it's the story that demands to be told. The story kind of dictates what medium it wants to be expressed in. I will break this down a little bit. So, for example, when I wrote my book, when I wrote my novel, I did not imagine that as in a visual medium, like as a movie or something, right? So I imagined that story in book form, in the via the literary medium.
Right.
In contrast to that, when we made our movie, that story was imagined visually. The visual medium was what we thought would kind of fit that story the best. Right. So I think the story that you are willing to tell, that story kind of dictates what medium it wants to be told in, what form of expression suits that particular story the best. I feel as an artist, we are merely the medium.
Right.
The story is the king, basically. That's the driver.
Right. Well, what you're saying, this actually kind of instigates me to put my next question. We know there's an old saying that whether it's the hen before or the egg before. So, if from that perspective, if I put the question that you were saying it's a picture, when we write, also there's a picture which interplays inside our mind, and when we actually create a picture, maybe a still photography, a painting, a motion photography, anything, these are visual art forms, a sculpture, so there is also a story behind it. So how do we put it, as we call imagery, what we say in Bangla as chitro kolpo? So what do you think is the more important factor, the image or the imagery?
I think for me, it's always been the environment, the where you are shooting, right? Or not even shooting. Shooting is the final form of it.
Yes.
How you are imagining capturing something, what you are capturing, and how you want to capture it.
Right.
These two things are the most important in your artistic journey, right? These two are the most important factors.
Very true. Very true.
What you want to capture and how you want to capture it. So, for example, if it's a still photograph, if I am photographing something, then what am I photographing and how do I want to do that? How do I want to go about it? Right? All the technical aspects then come into it. So, the image I feel the image comes from the imagery, right? The imagery is there, and how you process that imagery through your own artistic vision, that's what births the image.
I think that's this particular point, the conjecture is most important, Nilarun. For an example, if I coin Pather Pachali, it's a literary leisure being created in world literature. At the same time, we know Pather Pachali has also been given an exposition in world cinema through Shotuji's Ray's film. So in that case, when we go through the literary work of Pather Pachali, I mean, it's amazing when we go through the pages, we find images so powerful, images so inflicting inside our mind. Definitely, as well as the film, which we have all seen. So, in both the cases, what you were saying, the conjecture has been most important. So, do you think this conjecture is very important when we are going through the transformation, maybe a literary work converted into a cinematic work?
Right, that's a great example. So, Pother Pachali, when I personally when I read the book years and years back, that was a completely different experience
Right.
to watching the movie for the first time or for the 100th time. I have forgotten how many times I've watched it.
True.
I'm sure we all have.
This has been like a Bible to everyone who has been into filmmaking.
Sure. If you grow up in Calcutta, you're interested in movies, you watched the entire trilogy, right?
Very true. Yeah.
That's part of our filming grammar.
True.
So the book, if you read the book as an author, that was for me that was a formative experience. Reading the book and how you can build up an atmosphere, build up this place, this world that is completely alien to us in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
A world devoid of technology, a completely different world.
Right.
So that was a completely different experience to watching the movie, which again was very formative as a budding filmmaker.
Right.
So the same story gives birth to these two completely different types of art. That kind of, both of those kind of go on to define two different types of art, right?
Right.
Two different disciplines.
In fact, they have very two different languages.
The languages are completely different. As an artist, if you are, I feel, if you're reading something, if you're just a reader, if you're reading something, then you need to imagine visually. You need to imagine a whole lot, and you need to pour your personal emotions into the story to kind of connect with the characters on the page. With the visual medium, there is a shorthand. There's a visual shorthand. We actually see images on the screen.
Right.
Usually, there is music to guide our emotions. So the big screen or the smaller screen, as it has now turned out to be, wherever you are watching something, a movie or anything visual, there is a shorthand, an emotional shorthand that kind of tells you how you should be feeling maybe in a scene, which is not quite there in a book. So in a book, I feel if you're reading in literature, there is more work to be done by the reader, emotionally speaking, to connect with the characters. There is more concentration required.
Very
for
true.
For movies, I think it's easier for more people to connect more quicker with the characters on the screen or the story that's being told, because you don't have to imagine beyond a certain point, because there is a visual marker on the screen. If I say that two children are playing in a field, you are seeing two children playing in a field, whereas reading that sentence, you have to imagine what the field looks like and what the children look like.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So two completely different mediums that asks two completely different things of the reader and the viewer subsequently.
So when we talk about both the mediums, do you think, Nilarun, that for a literary medium, it gives a little more liberty to its readers to imagine a picture of what they're reading, rather than a visual medium? It already actually creates it already actually creates an imagery itself, which is being catered to the audience or the viewer.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel that in the visual medium, in a photograph or film, the boundary is set. So if you are watching a movie, you know exactly how the character looks. You know how the character is dressed, what the setting is. You can always imagine yourself in place of that character. I'll take an example of a very popular genre, which is what is called the rom-com, the romantic comedy.
Yes.
Where basically we are encouraged to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of the central characters, and so we are happy when they get their happy ending usually. But there is still a level of constraint that is put upon the entire practice, because when you are seeing, let's say for example, when Harry met Sally, you are seeing Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, and you might very well identify with their emotions and empathize with them, identify with them, and feel happy for them when they get their happy ending. There's still a level of remove that you have from the screen, because you are not a quick talking man in the 1980s, or you are not a blue-eyed blonde woman in the 1980s, right?
Right.
In fall New York. So in a book, because it's the written word and you have to imagine the details anyways, I feel that it kind of gives you more leeway of imagining it however you want, right? The authorial intent, I feel, is less constraining in a book, right?
Yeah.
As in, you can interpret things a little more freely in a book. If I, as an author, if I'm writing that someone is wearing a green dress, what particular shade of green it is, you can imagine that. Right. If I have mentioned that it's a particular shade of green, even then, what the fit of the dress is, you can imagine that, right?
Right.
And if I have, in rare cases, if I have mentioned everything, what is happening between two pages, between two chapters, those parts you can still imagine.
Right.
So I feel there is definitely more leeway, because it's the structure of the medium. If you're reading something that encourages you to imagine how the written word would actually take place in real life, in a three-dimensional world.
Yeah.
But as far as movies go, you are seeing an approximation of what the story would look like. Now, you can always use your own imagination of what happened after the credits, between two scenes, but I think it is the boundaries are more well defined. The boundaries of what you can imagine and what is set in stone in movies.
Right, right. In fact, what you're saying reminds me of another biblical film in the arena of world cinema, that's The Bicycle Thief, by Vittorio Di Sica and also by Luigi Bartolini. If you remember the last particular few lines in the book, when actually Bruno takes an attempt to solace his father, and in a time when the entire European continent was going through a lot of turmoil and maladies post-war, and what we see in the film, Di Sica picturizes a kind of a silence, a deep silence, where dialogues or words, I think, are merely unimportant. So he uses silence in his visual work. So exactly, that is so interesting, don't you think so?
Absolutely. So I'll take an example of a film that I love, which is It's a 1997 or 1998 film, I think. It's 97 or 98. It's Starship Troopers. It's a film by Paul Verhoeven, famous director of Robocop, Basic Instinct, and a bunch of other stuff. So what he did was, he took a science fiction novel by Robert Heinlein, who was a famous writer, a contemporary of Asimov. And so Heinlein's book was accused of being military propaganda.
Right.
And what Paul Verhoeven did was he took the same book, same characters, and he made it a parody of fascism, a critique and parody of fascism. He made the movie as if it was an in-world fascist propaganda film. So all the characters, they look really pretty, and the lighting is flat, and you are never told why they are fighting a war. They are fighting this alien species. And that's not the tone of the book at all.
Right.
Right. The tone of the book is very stately. It's us versus them kind of a thing. These young people joining the military and fighting this alien menace. And what Verhoeven did was he took the same book, and the tone is completely satirical, with over-the-top news cultures, and towards the climax of the movie, if you did not that what it was trying to say, they are one of the lead characters in a literal Nazi uniform, 80% Nazi garb.
Right.
So that, I think, is a very interesting thing of what very famous book was, and 30 years or 20 or 30 years later, when they're adapting the book, this particular filmmaker puts his own twist on the written word. So it's completely, as a viewer, if you read the book earlier, it's a completely different experience watching the movie. It does not seem like the same story at all, because the tone is different. But the basic story is the same. So I think that kind of is a very good example of what can happen when you are translating one medium to another. You know, the leeway you can get, basically. You can take a piece of work. I mean, Shakespeare, I think, is a great example, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Take a piece of Shakespeare and do whatever you want with it. Honestly, put it in any genre, any country, any time period. Just keep the basic human emotions and the story beats common, and it works. It works most of the time.
So it's actually, Nilarun, you could coin a story. A story always has its doors and windows open. And what depends is the percept of the subtext, how we actually conceive the story.
Right, true, absolutely. I will bring in one more element of it. We have spoken about the written word and the big screen. So if I were to draw a through line in between to the stage, right, because that's where we went from the written word to the stage and then up to the big screen.
Yes.
So I will draw the example of Orson Welles, and when he imagined in the 1930s, I think it was 38 or something, Julius Caesar, the play Julius Caesar, as if it took place in fascist Italy. And it was a big controversy at the time, but he imagined it that way, and he adapted that play in the 1930s, when, bear in mind, America was still not part of the war. Right? This is before Pearl Harbor, so America was not yet critiquing fascism like that openly.
Right.
Famously, Charlie Chaplin faced a lot of backlash for Great Dictator.
Right.
But now we see this kind of a reimagining of a classic tale is very common. It's very common. So artists, I feel, have been putting their own spin on old stories for a long time.
Right.
If you have heard a story and if you're retelling that story, you put your own spin on it. That's just what when we were little and our grandmothers used to tell us stories. That's what they did. That's, I think, the nature of storytelling in itself. Right. So that translates, I think, however we are adapting a book or a story to a movie. I think it's just we are just following in the traditions of classic storytellers.
Right.
When we are doing that.
And as a matter of fact, Nilarun, if you see perception changes from time to time, from person to person, and I think the political idiom of a person, of a storyteller, also varies from person to person. Because right now, what you were talking about, World War II. World War II, we have been watching films from all the perspectives. If we see maybe a recent film, if I may put an example, like Alexander Sokurov made a film on named Franco Rona. It was completely based on a very different percept during the world wars. But if we follow the Alistair MacLean stories, which were being filmed, I mean, grossly in Hollywood during 70s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s also. It's like the more of the pro-allied victories in the war. So both are of very different perspective, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. With time, I feel, if you give any historical event or a time period, if you let enough time pass, then you start seeing different perspectives because from street society, people read experiences, they get to tell their story. Because in any time period, while everything is going on, not everyone is allowed to tell their story. The oppressed are not allowed to tell their stories initially, right? Whether it's social oppression or political oppression.
Right, right.
So, but with time, we do get to see the stories that were suppressed in their time. So now, for example, we see a very famous movie on the waterfront with Mohan Bando,
Yeah.
which was made by Elia Kazan. We see that movie different because we know what Elia Kazan person will be during the case and the conflict of Hollywood. Right, we sympathize these days more with Thorsten Trumbo, who was black and who ended up winning the Oscar for writing Roman Holiday, while he was still on the blacklist. So we get to see, but in 50s Hollywood, that particular point of view was not possible, right?
Right.
So now, when we are far removed from that time period, we get to see varied perspectives. We get to see, people whose stories were not told back then. We know about them now. Now we get a big biopic of Dalton Trump was a writer starring Bryan Cranston. We get that now. And Elia Kazan, when he got the Lifetime Achievement Oscar, a bunch of people in the ceremony did not stand up or clap for him, even though he was a great director, right? Because they still remembered that he had named names in the blacklist. So time, I think, gives one perspective. As more and more stories come out, we get to learn more about what actually happened years and years back. And political ideologies, I think political ideologies shift with time,
right,
and experiences. But the basic stories and the basic struggle of the oppressor and the oppressed, that doesn't change. So that just changes form, I think.
Very
right.
true.
We see the same stories being repeated of an oppressor and someone being oppressed. If you go back to the 50s and old cowboy movies, the basic structure is very similar to our Marvel movies these days, the superhero movies.
Very true.
There's someone terrorizing a small town it used to be a small town, now it's like the world. And there's this white hat cowboy, which is what used to be, and now it's some superhero, and they are here to save the day, to save the maiden, to save the child, to save the old people, save the day.
Right.
Same structure.
Similarly, Nilarun, if we see, you spoke about the superhero concept. So, superhero as what we have seen in the West, and the superhero concept as what we perceive in the East or in our Orient, maybe. If I put a very simple example, like we see superheroes like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Then again, if we see a superhero in our Indian literature, maybe in graphic literature like Chacha Chaudhary, or maybe in Bangla as Batul the Great, we find a shift in the cerebrality of the nature of the superheroes. What do you think about it?
I think what is interesting about the whole superhero concept, right? We have to kind of discuss a little bit about where this entire thing comes from and where essentially comics was as a medium, comics as a medium, was in the 1930s when essentially you get your Superman and a year later you get your Batman.
Yeah.
Right. We kind of have to discuss the fact that we were just discussing craze and all that, and we just discussed Orson Welles.
Yep.
So, famously, Batman was inspired by a character called the Shadow.
Yes.
Which, so the Shadow, the time place that used to take place during the late 30s, Orson Welles voiced the Shadow a bunch of times. So, there's a bit of fun connection there. I think the interesting thing is that all the superhero, the Western, mainly American part of the superhero comics, they were very close to the Second World War, and that whole concept of this one superpower being who is saving the rest of us, he's above us, but he's also one of us. That's it's a very American concept, to be honest.
True.
So when it gets like transported to Asia, to India, for example, to our country,
yeah,
we kind of see a shift in how we portray superheroes. Right, our superheroes are more. I would say they're more of everyday people, and whenever they're super, there are more mystical elements involved, more often than not. Because mostly the Diamond Comics, I think, was the publisher who mostly made, I think, the 80s and all, who made most of the Indian comic characters. I think they owned it. And they, a lot of them were inspired by other characters in the West. A lot of the tropes, basically the grammar of it. But someone like Chacha Chaudhary is a very original character.
Yes.
But the tropes were already set. So what we see is a very interesting mix of familiar tropes that had by then been honed for 30, 40 years, and these very Indian settings and Indian characters with very Indian traits. So it's a very interesting mix in that regard, I feel. As far as Batul goes, I mean, that's a quintessentially Bengali spin on, it's not a superhero, but it's a comic character. So it's a very good, typical Bengali spin on that sort of a character. Batul, I think, is closer in tone to the original Popeye comics. If
yes.
I think you would understand it, the Popeye comics originally. So, very interestingly, Popeye was not part of the original comics. It was Popeye debuted in a series called Thimble Theatre, and I think he debuted like 10 years into the run of the comics or something, very late.
Right.
But there were a bunch of, like, Olive Oil was part of it for a long time before Popeye was. Right, but he is what blew up the entire thing. So the tone of that, I think the slapsticky tone of that is very close to what 50, 60 years later Batul ends up kind of aping, right?
Right.
With a very Bengali spin to it. So I think what happens is, any art form, when it travels to different cultures, the good artist kind of absorbs all the grammar and what has come before, and they create something new with their own experiences and their own tastes and whatever they infuse their own culture into it. And that's, I think, the interesting part about these particular creations, your Baturi, your Chacha Chaudhary, and all these creations.
True. Very well spoken, Nilarun, about it. Now it come to a very different question. As a new age writer, visualizer, filmmaker, what's your take?
Take on
filmmaking, on writing, on both the medium.
I think the entire filmmaking. I'll come to filmmaking first. Filmmaking, I think we are in a very interesting juncture here as storytellers, as filmmakers. Both filmmaking and writing, I think it's very easier than ever before. Let's say it's easier than ever before to make a film or to get a book published. And it's probably the hardest it's ever been to get people to actually pay attention to it.
Yes.
Right. So we're at a very interesting juncture. Like from like if we're talking about independent filmmaking, from Cassavetes to now, or from the new French New Wave to now, it's much easier for us in the age of digital filmmaking to make movies. If you want to shoot a film, you can shoot a film on your phone if you want to do it, right? The phones are capable these days.
Right.
You can make it. If you are a kid or someone who is older, you want to make it, you can make it. There are softwares that you can edit the entire thing on your computer, your home computer, you can get it done. But to get people to pay attention to it, when there's this deluge of content online, any platform you go to, there's this deluge of content.
Right.
That's the most difficult thing in the world.
Right.
If you see any commercial movie releasing here these days, the main trailer hits like a week or two before the release, right? When we used to have trailers constantly hitting us for 5-6 months.
Right.
Now the main push, there's always a push for like months and months, but the main push is the last 2-3 weeks. Because people know that the attention span is much, much lower these days. So you being an independent creator, it's much easier to make a film. You can, like, technically speaking, the digital has made everything much cheaper. There's more margin for error for all of us. With film stock, like, if you made a mistake while shooting, it would be expensive. If you made a mistake while taking a shot, that's a bit of film that you have wasted, and it was expensive. Nowadays, if you miss a certain shot, if you have made a mistake,
yes, one could go after multiple takes.
You just delete that footage and you take more. It's perfectly fine.
With the digitization, it's definitely very much possible, and it's eased up. Yep.
Yes, you and I have both made films, and we know how much the digital technology kind of aids indie filmmaking.
Exactly.
How much quicker we can shoot.
Exactly.
While I would like to wax lyrical about the look of film and film green and this that, if you are on the ground in India, in Kolkata especially, and you are an indie filmmaker, digital is your best friend.
Absolutely.
Digital is your best friend.
Goes without saying. So one thing here, when we have actually spelled the word digital, so digital technology audiovisually has kind of expanded the course of storytelling till a huge extent. I mean, it has really expanded its horizon to meet up the infinity. So now, if I see this infinity has actually given space to a lot of things. Now we are seeing micro contents. We are seeing vertical contents as we commonly call as reels. Now those are coming as micro content films also in popular OTTs. Do you think this is also creating a opposing a disturbance to intense content, making intense content?
I would like to I would like to think that the main medium, long format storytelling,
Yeah.
which is what cinema was birthed as, right? Long format storytelling. So if we let us just go back in time a little bit. Visual, the visual medium of movies, right? Moving pictures. If we go back,
Right.
they were a carnival attraction. Right?
Absolutely.
People used to show these moving pictures in tents. And from there, it evolved. From the Lumiere brothers onwards, it evolves. It evolves to your 1910s and all that. You get your D.W. Griffith and your Pabst and all these people, your Murnau and all, and you get into proper storytelling. Now we are kind of reverting back to that carnival attraction thing, right? Which is these reels and all this, which is very quick, which is not a complete story or anything. It's just a quick bit of gratification. It's a very quick thing. The difference is the carnivals and the tents, they're all in your hands, in the palm of your hand, they're in your cell phones.
Right.
I feel just like the films evolved from those carnival tents to movie theaters, and now we have kind of gone back a little bit. I think they can exist side by side. Now, whether people, since the pandemic, we know that globally the film industry has been dealing with the fact that people don't go out to the theaters as much anymore, except for big budget spectacle films.
Yeah.
Generally speaking. But we have seen these Marvel superhero films starting to flop. We have seen lesser and lesser people be interested in those, and we have seen other movies kind of connecting with audiences again, right? So I think while the technology is evolving, while the discussion that we are having now, I feel like the same discussion was had 75 years back when television was the new thing.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That will people go out to see movies anymore? Now there's this little box and television. It was not vertical, but there was this. It was the lesser medium. And as we all know how amazingly the television storytelling evolved over the last 60, 70 years, right? Some of the best stuff we have watched has been made for the smaller screen. The younger generation would obviously know of Breaking Bad and to a certain extent Game of Thrones, if you don't count the last few seasons. So I think film as a medium will be fine. I think it will outlive all of us. It will be fine. But yes, I don't think this smaller format of storytelling will go away. What I hope is that it will evolve.
Right.
Right now, I don't see too much merit in what is currently being done. But again, I feel it is evolving. It is completely new. So it would be foolish for us to dismiss it altogether. I think we are seeing the birth, post-pandemic, we are seeing the birth of, a new type of storytelling. And my hope is that, like all of storytelling over millennia, this will also evolve. And the classic format of filmmaking and this new format of filmmaking, let's call it filmmaking, I think both of these will exist side by side. Like you cannot enjoy a family night watching reels. If you want that community experience,
True.
you need a classic format storytelling movie, right? For instant gratification, this is fine, but that's a very personal, isolating experience.
Here only, I mean, do you think this is something like, if I call it as it's a tendency, like a trend? Now with the expansion of digital technology in communication, everyone has a story to tell. Everyone is getting a hands-on possibility to tell a story. Do you think the boom is due to this, the very immaculate urge for common people also to tell a story? Do you think is it
Sure,
the
sure. I think I will paraphrase something that Bo Burnham said. He's a great filmmaker. He started as a stand-up comic, and now he's made a great film. He made a film called Eighth Grade. He said something which I felt summed up this entire phenomena perfectly. He kind of said that we are a generation of performers who all want to perform. So we are all performing, but for ourselves.
Very true.
Right. We are the audience and we are the performers.
Right.
Every person has always had a story to tell.
Right.
Now we all have the medium of kind of expressing that story, which is perfectly fine. But I mean, you don't want to be looking into your neighbor's window the entire day. After a point, you will get bored. Right. So I think social media kind of works like that. It piques our voyeuristic interest for a while, but if you keep looking at what other people are saying and doing, their unstructured stories, it gets boring after a while. You will go back to your carefully crafted by artists stories. There's a difference between an Ansel Adams photo or Raghuveer Singh photo than a random selfie.
Very true.
Right.
It has to be.
You can on social media you can look at a friend's selfie and hit like on it, but if you see a print of a classic Cartier-Bresson photo on the street, you will stop and look at it.
Very true.
That won't happen with a random selfie. So it's all expression, it's all self-expression, which I think is healthy up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we are calling what people are sharing online, if we are calling that storytelling, which I think it kind of is, it is healthy. I personally feel, it's my personal opinion, that it's healthy up to the point when you are seeking validation for your stories. If you're seeking social validation for constantly for your stories, you seek that dopamine hit that comes from all the social media likes and all of that, then that kind of starts veering into uncomfortable, unhealthy territory, right?
Right.
I mean, if a movie flops, then the filmmaker can go on to make a different movie. Right. I mean, that's their job as an artist to take that. But you as a person, you should not get depressed because your personal update did not get 100 likes. Right. That's not your profession.
Very true.
Right. A filmmaker's film flopping is a professional setback. But your personal story not connecting with a bunch of people, that should not be that's not a professional anything. We have veered into personal territory now.
Right.
So I think storytelling will be fine, but this thing of vertical content and all of this, I think it will evolve.
True.
Because people will not stop sharing their own experiences, which is good. But I think this whole thing, social media, which is driving it, I think it will change. What we call reels now, it comes from what was Vine 10 years back, I think. 10 or 15 years back.
Right.
It was Vines, which was micro videos, that evolved into what we now call Reels. So I think
maybe it will evolve into something else.
Maybe it will evolve into something else.
Yeah.
I think we don't need to be we don't need to clutch our pearls and be like, this is sacrilege. It's just people living their lives. I think if we as artists, if we concentrate on telling our own stories, we'll be fine.
Right. Greatly put forward, Nilarun. Now, and as I would put my last question, that will be a very interesting one from my side, as well as I think you would love replying it. That is, you have already produced a feature film and you've been making films as well. So a writer turned photographer into a filmmaker and a producer as well. Producing is a very important and interesting journey in filmmaking. So your last film which you produced, Dhruvo Rashtrojo Jibon, or Strange Life of Dhruvo, which has been decorated with several acclaims internationally and nationally last year. So this Dhruvo Rashtrojo Jibon is a film of the new era. So what do you think, Nilarun, nowadays, be it a story, an author writing a story, be it a film made by a filmmaker, the very two beam balance of a protagonist and an antagonist, it has quietly been decimated in today's content creation. We don't actually look out for protagonist or antagonist in today's literature, today's storytelling, in today's filmmaking. So it's all about the content, it's all about the perspective, which is more important. So if you could shed some light on this, on the context of your produced film.
I think what has become interesting is, and this kind of draws a through line from our previous point, which is that there is so much of content that is open to all viewers, right? If you have an internet connection, you can see so much content that what people want to see usually, I feel people want to see two types of content. Either they want to see something new, or they want something that is like a warm blanket, which is warm, comforting, and familiar.
Right.
So these mega blockbuster action films that we are seeing, these are comfort blankets. These are familiar. You know your preferred superstar, and you know he will win in the end, and you want to have fun. It's warm, it's comforting, it's familiar. And the other type of content that people are kind of hankering for is new, something they haven't seen, something that is kind of challenging them to kind of view things in a new way, or it's a genre they haven't seen, or it's an actor they haven't seen in that particular type of role. It's something new, basically. Right. So I think more than we as creators, we think in very literal terms, right? I feel the audience does not think in those terms. When my movie was in theaters, I went out to certain theaters and I spoke with the people who had watched the movie, right? I wanted to understand what they liked and what they did not like about the movie. And what I felt was that most of the people who I spoke with, they did not understand the technical aspects of it. Either they were interested in the concept, either they were connecting emotionally with the characters, or they were not. As simple as that. I feel the classic form of storytelling where you want your audience to connect with your characters, that is still the basis of filmmaking. That is what we all aim to do as filmmakers. But these days, I feel the challenges to at least here in India, in Kolkata, it's the challenge is to present something new to the audience, right? Because there is so much content. When we were growing up, if you wanted to see something, if you saw a movie and you wanted to see a similar movie, you did not. You would have to go out to a video cassette store and ask that guy and then rent. Nowadays, you just go online and you type a movie's name in, and Google will suggest 20 similar movies to you.
Right.
Any streaming service will have, if you watch one movie, they will suggest, if you watch this, you will like this. So what has happened is that thing has gone now. If one particular movie is a hit, other people are trying to replicate that hit. And usually, 9 times out of 10, none of the other movies are as big of a hit. Because people can get their fix anywhere. If you are making a movie inspired by, I'll give a particular example, inspired by South Korean thrillers, action thrillers.
Right.
People watch that these days, people watch that, they like it. They will immediately go back home from the theater and watch a bunch of actual South Korean action thrillers
of the same genre
in a streaming service. So when 2 years later you make another movie like that, they are already over it.
Right.
The audience is already over it. So I think the main challenge is to kind of make something new for the audience. To keep the classic structure, you have to keep the classic structure of having characters that feel real, with having human emotions that people can connect with, and put a new gloss on it, to put them in a new structure. Maybe you blend genres, you kind of try to tell stories of communities and people that haven't been told before, right? Or you reflect the ever-changing reality in people's lives. Post-COVID, if you are you showing how COVID affected people? Are you showing all the new jobs that people have, right?
Right.
I mean, if for example you showed a corporate worker 20 years back, their day-to-day lifestyle would be completely different to what it is now. The working hours, the challenges they are facing. So are you updating the lives of your characters to the lives of the audience? I think if you are doing that, if you are updating your storytelling to the current day and age, I think audiences are still up for classic formats of storytelling. The new that you need to present to audiences, I feel, are the new realities that people are facing every day. The new challenges, the new realities. That's what they want to see on the screen.
Right. Right.
Because at the end of the day, you and I, all of us, we want to see some version of ourselves up on the screen.
Absolutely.
We want to see representation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. This reminds me of a very old anecdote once spoken by Bertolt Brecht, that it's the play is not just happening on this side of the fourth wall, it too is happening on the other side of the fourth wall as well. So,
Right.
Nilarun, really, I'm honestly thanking you on behalf of the audience and Team OVO. It was a wonderful session talking to you. I mean, looking deep within the perspectives of storytelling. So, once again, thank you, Nilarun.
Thank you. Thank you so much to you and the entire team for having me on this.
Dear listeners, a very engaging conversation actually evokes a lot of questions. The questions which keeps on interplaying inside our mind even after the conversation ends. What about a storyteller who delves into the multifarious mediums through the interdisciplinary forms? Nilarun Bose's perception on art really made me think that how we keep on transiting within our ideas, with our ideas, through our ideas. It is actually the very importance of idea, the very earnest concept to think, which create stories, how we actually intermediate ourselves from one medium to the other, and definitely the evolution. So, at the end of this episode, I felt change is the most important word. But how? Well, that's a question which we would be questioning on another episode. Till then, I would like to sign off for the day. But we will be back with more such interesting conversations only on Obo Vinyl. So before I bid you farewell, I would like to say keep on listening to Obo Vinyl. Till then, stay well, stay in peace, and stay tuned to Obo.